Stop scrolling. Let me tell you a story, and believe me, this isn't some petty family drama. This is about what happens when real love, deep grief, and a total modern misunderstanding collide. It's about how my own kids, the ones I raised with every bit of my heart, tried to cancel my husband's funeral and throw a party instead. Can you imagine? Stay with me, because what I found in a little leather-bound book is the secret to saying goodbye the right way. It's a secret many of us in our generation, and I'm talking to you, my dear friends, those of us who remember a proper, dignified farewell, desperately need to hear. My John, 70 years together, a long, beautiful run. We were just a simple couple. We built a good life, right here. Oh, we were happy. We never went in for all that keeping up with the Joneses nonsense. We weren't flashy. We preferred a strong cup of coffee and a quiet morning to a fancy weekend brunch. He was a retired accountant. I was a school administrator. Our joy was found right here. We raised two fine children, Michael and Sarah. They went off to college, got their great jobs in the city, and we were left with a comfortable silence. It was bliss, really, the kind of life that isn't exciting to read about, but is wonderful to live. Every evening, it was the same routine. We didn't need to talk much, mind you. 70 years gives you a language of your own, a knowing look, a shared sigh. I knew what he was thinking before he opened his mouth. And oh boy, he certainly knew when I was laying down the law about something. It was a solid, dependable love, the kind that endures. That's the truth of it. And then, on a freezing cold Tuesday in February, he simply slipped away in his sleep. No fuss, no hospital drama, just peaceful. I woke up, reached out for him, and realized his side of the bed was already cold. It was devastating, of course, but in a quiet way. The doctor held my hand and said, "Mary, he waited until you were both settled." It was a blessing, a profound kindness after such a long life. Thank goodness for that. My heart shattered, but I also felt a deep, piercing sorrow mixed with profound gratitude. I knew he was ready. That morning, I didn't need noise or crowds. I needed to sit and look at his empty chair and let the silence hold me. I was ready for the quiet dignity of a proper, structured goodbye, a chance to let the community mourn with me. I was ready for the hymns, the tears, the respect. But what I wasn't ready for, though, was the fuss. Honestly, I wasn't ready for my children to try and cancel my grief before it had even properly begun. I barely had time to finish the first pot of coffee before Michael and Sarah arrived. Now, my children are good kids, really. They truly are. Successful. But they live in a different world, you see. A world of wellness and positivity. Michael, my eldest, marched in, good heavens, with a glossy brochure on the coffee table. It was all loud music, flashy lights, and smiley faces. He announced, without so much as a hug first, "Mum, we're doing a celebration of life." No dreary black, no long hymns. Dad wouldn't want that. Can you believe the nerve? I looked at Sarah, hoping for an ally. She just nodded brightly. "Yes, Mum." It's what everyone is doing now. It's all about honouring his energy. We'll rent a tent for the backyard, get a great playlist. Dad loved that old school disco, and everyone can share their best memories. No tears allowed. They called it closure through joy. Oh, please. I tried to reason with them. "Wait just a minute," I said, and I tried to keep my voice steady. "Your father loved quiet dignity." And it's not entirely about what he wants now, it's about what I need. I need the sadness. I need to stand in a quiet church, sing the hymns he loved, and let the tears flow with the community. I need a proper send-off, a final shared goodbye. A party just feels cheap. It feels like we're sweeping John under the rug. But they wouldn't hear it, honestly. They used phrases like outdated formality and moving on quickly. They told me I was being dramatic. They told me they had already booked the caterers and rented the tent, all before they even asked me. I was speechless. I felt completely overridden. It wasn't just about the funeral, it was the ultimate dismissal of my way of grieving, the way I needed to process 70 years of love. It was a real slap in the face, even if they didn't mean it that way. I kept trying to tell them, you've got this all wrong. A celebration is a terrible way to start healing. But they just patted my hand, rushing past, a quick peck on the cheek, then back to the planning on their phones. We've got it covered, Mum. Just relax. It's going to be a blast. They were so focused on being modern and positive that they completely missed the point. Grief needs respect, not a soundtrack. I felt so utterly alone in my own home, like an alien. I felt like I was sitting there, desperate to cry, desperate to mourn, while my own children were planning a birthday party for a ghost. I tried once more, what about the hymns, Michael? What about the pallbearers? He just shrugged. Mom, who needs pallbearers when you have a ramp and a good dolly? That's when I knew. They weren't honouring John, they were honouring their own comfort. What a mistake! And that's exactly what set the stage for the party. Oh, the party! The day arrived, and oh, what a racket it was. The tent was up. It looked like a wedding reception, not a funeral gathering. The caterers were serving miniature burgers and fancy mini appetizers, and the DJ, yes, they actually hired a DJ, was blasting disco music. People were laughing, and they kept trying to thrust a glass of Prosecco into my hand. Cheer up, Mary! John would have loved this, they shouted over the music. But I kept thinking, no, he wouldn't. He'd have hated it. My children were in their element. They were hosting. Michael was loud, telling a slightly inappropriate story about John's old fishing trip. Sarah was buzzing about, managing the waiters. They were celebrating their idea of John, the fun, public man. They were so busy being gracious hosts that they didn't even notice I hadn't had a real conversation with anyone. I felt like an alien at my own husband's wake. His coffin was in the study, just off the main living room, alone. All day, all evening, it sat there, a silent reminder of the loss they were so desperately trying to ignore. Every now and then, I'd slip away, just for a moment, to be with him. The noise from the party was muffled but still present, like a rude intrusion into our final moments together. I sat on his old armchair, my hand resting gently on the polished wood, and I just wept. Not the loud, dramatic kind of crying, but quiet, deep, ragged sobs that felt like they were ripping my soul in two. This was my funeral, my only chance to say a private goodbye. And it was happening in the dark, with the bass of the DJ speaker vibrating through the floorboards. It felt like I was being robbed. Robbed of dignity, robbed of my right to mourn, and worst of all, robbed of the chance to honour the man I loved. I was convinced they were right. I was just an old fool, stuck in the past, the only one who needed this dreary old funeral. That night, after everyone had finally gone home, and the silence had returned. The house felt heavy. The next morning, I was clearing up John's study, the one room they hadn't touched. I smoothed out the cushion on his armchair, and that's when my hand brushed against something hard. What in the world? I pulled it out. It was a little leather-bound book, not one I'd ever seen before. My heart gave a little thump. It was his handwriting, a secret diary. I hadn't known he kept one. I picked it up, feeling a strange mix of trespass and profound curiosity. Was this a sign, a final message? I took the book to the window, the morning light hitting the worn leather. I felt a tiny, fragile spark of hope. I just had to see what was inside. I took the book to the window, the morning light hitting the worn leather. I felt a tiny, fragile spark of hope. I just had to see what was inside. I opened it, my heart pounding like a drum. Goodness, I was shaking. It wasn't a daily account. It was more of a thoughtful journal, reflections, little notes on life, and then I found it. An entry dated just 3 weeks before he passed. It was titled, "A Word on Leaving." I started reading, and believe me, my breath hitched. He had written about his own mortality. He wrote about the simple things, about how much he loved the garden, and how he wished Michael would finally fix that leaky faucet. But then it got specific about the funeral. And oh, my dear friends, he saw the whole thing coming. He wrote, clear as a bell, "If I'm fortunate enough to go before Mary, I hope she doesn't let the children talk her into one of those ghastly celebrations. They mean well, bless their busy hearts, but grief needs its structure. A proper church service, the old hymns, Amazing Grace, perhaps, a quiet moment for everyone to acknowledge the gap I leave behind. It's for the living, isn't it? For Mary to have closure, to know she did right by me. I don't need a party, I need my girl to be okay. No noise, just quiet dignity. P.S. Tell Michael to sell that dreadful electric blue suit he bought for Sarah's wedding. It makes him look like an extra from a bad movie." I read that last line and I actually laughed, a real genuine laugh, the first I'd had in days. That was John, his voice, his dry humour, his absolute certainty, and his profound understanding of my heart. He hadn't just not wanted a party, he had actively wanted a proper, dignified farewell, for me. The relief was overwhelming. I wasn't the stubborn old woman. I was the one who had read the situation correctly, and I had the proof. My sorrow was still there, but now it was mixed with a fierce new resolve. I held that book like a shield. John, even in death, had come to my defense. Now it was time to confront Michael and Sarah. The party was over, but the real funeral was about to begin. I didn't waste a minute. I called the children back to the house. I was calm, but I had that fierce new resolve burning inside me. I didn't shout. I didn't even cry. I just placed John's leather-bound journal, open to that specific page, on the table between us. I told them, your father had some final thoughts he wanted us to know. I watched them read it. The shame on their faces was heartbreaking. Michael dropped his head into his hands. Sarah just whispered, "Oh, Mom." We were so wrong. We were so busy trying to be positive. We were actually being selfish. They saw it, finally. They hadn't been malicious. They had just been disconnected. John's words had done what I couldn't. They had stopped the argument cold. The party was over, but the real funeral was about to begin. We organised a small private memorial service a week later. John's wishes were followed exactly. We sang Amazing Grace, just like he wanted. It was small, quiet, dignified. Michael and Sarah stood beside me, not as party hosts, but as grieving children. The community held us up. We cried, we shared quiet stories, and we finally, properly, let him go. The tears were the closure I had been fighting for. They were the healing I was denied by all that noise. My children apologized, profoundly. They hadn't understood. They thought they were protecting me from sadness, when in fact they were denying me the necessary process of grief. It was a hard lesson, but a vital one. Losing someone is never easy, but how we say goodbye, how we honour their life, and crucially, how we allow ourselves to grieve, matters. My hope is that my story, shared here with you today, saves just one family from making this painful mistake. Grief is not an emotion to be avoided or celebrated away. It is a vital, sacred process that demands respect. A funeral isn't for the person who has gone, it's for the ones left behind. So, if your heart tells you you need a proper goodbye, you stand firm. If this story resonated with you, and if you've ever felt invisible or unheard during a difficult time, please give this video a thumbs up. And more importantly, subscribe to join our little community here. Go on then. Let me know in the comments, what is one simple piece of advice you'd give to your younger self about managing grief? Speaking of tough lessons and family conflict, I need to tell you what happened next, just 3 months after John passed. The subject is still a bit raw, but I think it's important. They called it progress. They said it was just bricks and mortar. But the house I lived in for 50 years, the one where I raised them, they wanted to sell it before the paint was even dry. You won't believe what I found hidden behind the kitchen pantry that stopped the whole sale cold. Join me next time, and I'll tell you how I fought for my memories.